we'll be talking about chapter 31, section 3, and it's all about culture and counterculture and how the ideals of this lifestyle of the counterculture really challenge the traditional views of Americans.
Let us be lovers, we'll marry our fortunes together. I've got some real estate here in my bag, so we bought a pack of
Hey man,
cigarettes
take good care of her in San Francisco. Man?
and walked off to look for America.
One day, you'll be cool.
Kathy, I said as we boarded,
Look under your bed. It'll set you free.
Michigan seems like a dream to me now.
What's the plan?
It took me 4 days to hitchhike from San
You're 18 and I can't stop you.
to look for America.
Bye.
She'll be back.
She said the man
Maybe not soon.
in suit was a spy. I said, be careful, his bow tie is really a camera. Toss me a cigarette, I think there's one in my raincoat. We smoked the last one an hour ago. So I looked at the scenery. She read her magazine, and the moon rose over an open field.
It's great. Okay, so counterculture. You know, that phrase, tune in, turn on, drop out. It's actually a euphemism for LSD, for, experiencing kind of hallucinogenic experiences. But this was a common phrase in the counterculture, mostly made up of white middle-class youths who chose to follow these ideals and reject the concepts of traditional America. The term hippie began to float around from an old jazz term, hip. Of course, modern use, hipster, just meaning kind of outside of the norm or even avant-garde. So they called themselves hippies. And one of the kind of unifying concepts among hippie culture is that society is meaningless, is that it has no ultimate purpose, that materialism is hollow. And there's a lot of popular literature that goes along with that, like Sinclair Lewis's popular book Babbitt is a satire and a scathing critique of our obsession with products. That even, it kind of is a rejection of technology and war and modernism even. So there were a lot of like early 20th century romantic authors that honestly felt the same way, that were influencing many of these folks. J.R. Tolkien was anti-technology and was kind of anti-modernism. And so, a lot of folks latched onto that concept that the direction that history is heading is a very dark path. But that even, what's the end result of war? And so a lot of these kind of scathing critiques of modern traditional values were unifying factors. And it's okay, an idealistic lifestyle. Peace, love, happiness, idyllic communities. If you know enough history, you see the kind of end result of a lot of that idealism. But yet, doesn't mean it's not worth pursuing. And so striving for a lifestyle of peace internally and externally, of pursuing love with oneself and one's fellow person, and living in harmony with the world and people around them. I mean, those are, again, very positive attributes. But it would compel many of these young people to leave school, to leave their jobs, to leave their homes, like the young person in the clip that we just saw, to go and discover themselves. And there are countless stories of people like this. Jack Kerouac, of course, wrote his book, Hitchhiking Across the Country. And there's nothing wrong with travel. There's nothing wrong with seeking self-discovery. I think it's an important thing that everybody should do. And so, again, people take this to different extremes. But, when you think of hippie culture, here's some of the, I guess, common aspects. Like in the first clip, you saw the young boy scrolling through records. Some of the ones that he saw there, of course, Joni Mitchell, Bob Dylan, Led Zeppelin, The Who, Jimi Hendrix. Those are just some of the popular artists that exemplified this lifestyle. Also, some of the clothing that you've seen in this movie or in other clips that we'll look at. Colorful clothing, everything from tie-dye to bell-bottoms to different styles of wearing your hair. But even, those lifestyle choices. This was also a time known as the sexual revolution, where more people felt emancipated in how they expressed themselves and how they identified sexually. But even, a philosophy, a mindset based on experience as an end to itself. The formal term there is existentialism, is that you can find meaning through experience. And, that can have real value. Your hobbies, your interest probably, hopefully, give you a sense of meaning and purpose and fulfillment. And so, that whole movement is about seeking that fulfillment in how you live and trying to find that satisfaction. But of course, the negative part of that is that can lead a lot of people down a dark path. If experience is an end to itself, what can that lead to in regards to experimentation with drugs, in regards to seeking alternative experiences? But again, those types of experiences don't have to come through drugs. The young boy in the clip was meditating. He was listening to music. He was focusing on an object. He was clearing his mind, and that's a form of meditation. And meditation is a practice that's taught and encouraged in all faiths. But many of these folks are turning to Eastern religions. Like another popular writer of the time who wrote Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance, one of my favorite books. And it's about the concept, I guess you could call it Zen Buddhism. It's the idea that mindfulness, that meditation can lead to a more positive worldview. And so, if that's something you're into, I encourage you to read that book. It was kind of a handbook for a lot of hippies in the 1970s. Now, a lot of these folks, and you saw in the movie, the young girl and boy were headed to San Francisco and became kind of the cultural capital of the hippie movement. But, of course, many of the negative aspects of this, fleeing responsibility, connecting with other people, pursuing this hedonistic lifestyle can sometimes turn dangerous. illicit drug use carries with it the danger of addiction. Janis Joplin, Jimi Hendrix, two leaders of this movement, both died of drug overdoses. You could argue that they wrote some great stuff under the influence, but of course they died from that. These are dangerous substances these people are experiencing, and it can cause mental breakdowns. For example, the original lead singer of Pink Floyd, Syd Barrett. Pink Floyd, one of the most famous psychedelic bands. Their lead singer suffered a psychotic breakdown due to hallucinogenic use and spent the rest of his life in his mother's basement. So Pink Floyd wrote a tribute album to him called "Wish You Were Here," and then they went on and had a successful career, and some of them still tour. But that poor man, well, he lived the rest of his life disturbed.
By 1960, the new drugs were calming the mentally ill. At the same time, other drugs were on the verge of making a major impact on our society. Secret drugs, from a government program to develop new weapons. Strange substances were being tested at the same veterans hospital where Kesey had been working while riding Cuckoo's Nest. Government doctors offered to pay him $75 a session to swallow a pill to see what happens.
Every Tuesday I'd go in there about 8:30 in the morning, and these doctors would give me some stuff, and they wouldn't tell you what.
The researchers were cataloging the effects of new mind-altering chemicals. Their goal was to create a drug that could be used as a fearsome weapon.
This program had been initiated and was being run by the CIA. And this is the great irony of the 60s, that the psychedelic drugs, which created the kinds of changes of consciousness and perceptions of the world that drove the 60s, was distributed by the CIA. So pretty soon, one way or another, these drugs found their way out of the hospital and into the counterculture.
Ken Kesey was a colorful and magnetic personality, attracting the children of the Eisenhower era to visit a new world very different from the one they had left.
And he was the famous author, he was the guy with the energy, he was the guy with the ideas, the imagination, the daring,
People would make the trek to Kesey's property near La Honda, California, to trip with their leader.
A thing that people overlook about us is we were all college graduates. We were in Stanford and graduate programs. Babs is a captain in the Marines, and we had a life and families, and we had some idea what existentialism was about, and the dead-end, bleak chasm you're standing there looking into of existentialism. You begin to deal with it by reaching across the chasm.
In 1966, the California legislature outlawed acid, LSD.
What's happened is both schizophrenia and LSD and other hallucinogens poison the brain's ability to tell whether impulses are coming from outside, out there in reality, or are coming from inside, from the workings of your own mind.
In 1965, Ken Kesey was arrested for possession, marijuana, not LSD, and eventually spent 5 months in jail. When he was let out, he packed up his family and left California, back to a farm in Oregon where he has lived ever since. 3 decades later, when he looks at his jail drawings, it all comes back again.
It's like suddenly, clang, the doors are there again, you're back in jail. And the thing that jail teaches you is you want to get out.
He says the time in county jail taught him a few things about human nature, but his basic beliefs did not change. His challenge to society? Question reality.
The Cuckoo's Nest charm, I think, goes to this thing of tearing away the fabric of what we've been told is reality and seeing that through that fabric is something far more real. It's raw, and it's harsh on you. It gives you anguish to see it. But when you do, then somehow you are moving a little farther up this ladder into the smoke.
So that was Ken Kesey, author of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. And he was also an early experimenter with the LSD trials. And I hope you kind of saw some of the long-term effects it's had on him just from listening to him talk. Now, some of the art that's come out of this era, pop art. Andy Warhol's probably the most famous pop artist. That is, using commercial and impersonal images in an ironic way. And the point here, if you look at some of Andy Warhol's work, you'll see an iconic painting of Marilyn Monroe, drawn ironically, saying, "Oh yeah, look at this image, look at this thing that everybody knows, that everybody worships. What's the ultimate meaning?" Or he draws a Campbell's soup can. Here's this thing that everybody buys and everybody uses all the time. What's the point? And so that type of ironic art as satire is meant to imply a personal freedom from this conformist worldview.
Nudity in movies and on stage becomes an ever more common feature of the new culture. It all started with a youth-oriented hippie-style musical called Hair, and went off-Broadway in Geese, and finally in O Calcutta, an explicit catalog of eroticism. Drugs, especially marijuana, became a major problem in 1969. Operation Intercept stopped the drugs from crossing the Mexican border. Great quantities were seized and destroyed. But Mexico claimed the operation was ruining tourism. After the Mexican government agreed to crack down on suppliers, Operation Intercept was canceled. A shortage of marijuana, however, was not apparent at the Woodstock Music Festival. Almost 500,000 young people gathered for a generally peaceful but monumentally disorganized weekend. It generally reached young people and set a style soon copied by other festival promoters the world over.
Dawn at London Airport on a cold February morning in 1964. Hundreds of teenage girls had spent the night in fevered anticipation. The Beatles were coming back to Britain. To say they were returning from their first American tour in triumph was an understatement. This new pop phenomenon was giving the word adulation a whole new meaning. Beatlemania was how the media were describing it. Scenes of hysteria greeted the four young men wherever they went. The past 3 weeks had seen them take America by the same sort of storm they caused in Europe. Their records were top of the charts. They'd been seen coast to coast on television. The world of entertainment was at their feet. So it seemed was the world of adolescent youth. With the screams still echoing, there was just about time to hear how the trip to the States had gone.
What impressed you most about the place? You have time to take anything in properly?
Oh, yeah. I don't know. I think I enjoyed the sun in Miami most of all. Yeah, healthy.
You're the healthy one of the four,
No, but the sun was sort of
very healthy.
Yeah, very healthy.
Did you have a chance to get away from anybody at any time on the trip?
Yeah, he got away from me twice.
What did you most like about the trip, Ringo?
Oh, I just loved all of it, you know, especially Miami. The sun, you know. I didn't know what it meant until I went over there.
Did you ever have a chance, John, to just get away on your own without anybody recognising you?
We borrowed a couple of millionaires' houses, you know. Well,
we did. You could afford to buy a couple of millionaires' houses, couldn't you?
No, We're sooner borrow them, it's cheaper.
I hear anyway that the four of you are going to be millionaires by the end of the year.
Oh, that's nice.
Have you got time? Have you got time to actually spend this money?
What money? We get money as well.
Doesn't he give any to you?
And this was only the start of their musical career.
For some, the lifestyle of the late 60s was bohemian. Dropouts from the corporate culture joined communes on campuses, in cities, and on farms. San Francisco's Haight-Ashbury was the capital of the counterculture. It was there that the kids with long hair, beads, and flowers were first called hippies, and the name caught on. Underground newspapers, head shops, and free clinics soon transformed old neighborhoods in many cities. Mystical religions from the East became popular. The Maharishi Mahesh Yogi's program of transcendental meditation attracted thousands of followers. Rock festivals drew huge crowds in the late 60s. The biggest was Woodstock. Nearly 500,000 kids jammed onto a 600-acre dairy farm near Woodstock, New York in August '69 to dance, sing, smoke, and make love. Despite shortages of food and water and heavy rainstorms, Woodstock was a peaceful celebration. From now on, we would call these kids the Woodstock generation. Regardless of lifestyle, most Americans benefited from the prosperity of the late 60s. Few seemed worried about inflation. Gasoline was 33 cents a gallon. And when it got hot, lots of us headed for the beach. Summer vacations helped us forget our troubles. Time to relax, get a suntan, and people watch. The late 60s were violent and frightening years. The issues of war and peace and the survival of the planet concerned more Americans than ever before. We were divided as a people, and our voices sometimes grew loud and angry. But whatever the issue or cause, most of us agreed we had the right to stand up, speak out, and march for what we believed in. And in time, the passions of these years would prove to be indications not of weakness, but of strength.
So, there's a changing culture here among the counterculture. These attitudes towards sexual behavior become more open, more casual, more permissive. And as a result, when you have a large group of people challenging the status quo, it can move the entire culture into a different direction. Previously taboo topics like sex or violence were becoming more commonplace. And many people view this permissiveness as liberating. More people, again, become open and expressive of alternative lifestyles. But yet, there was a backlash to this. With the 1960s and 70s, a growing number of people were concerned about the direction that American culture was heading in. And so it did lead to a popular conservative movement that helped get Reagan elected in the 1980s and led to the moral majority and a lot of the kind of pro-family movements. But nonetheless, these attitudes about dress, about lifestyle, about behavior do kind of work their way into the popular culture.
It's very quiet in here tonight. Is it always this quiet?
I don't know nothing. I just work here.
Hey, guys. Poppy, where's the football team? They'll be here. Don't panic. Boy, I hope they get here. What does that mean? Are they coming or not? Look, we still got 5 minutes. 5 minutes? Oh, no. Do you know how much beating up the Dukes can do in 5 minutes? They're here. The football team's here. Oh, they're not here. They're not here. What do you mean they're not here? Well, the coach is showing a film to inspire them. Newt Rockne, All-American. You promised us a football team and all we get is the mascot. I'm getting out of here. Yeah. Well. What have we got here? The 3 little pigs and the ugly duckling. Hey, that's my bike. A beauty, ain't it? I'd leave it outside, but some bad person is liable to steal it. Well, I think we were just leaving. Look, we don't want any trouble. Hey, there's no trouble. No trouble at all. Punching's no trouble, is it, fellas? Hey, Frankie, you're just in time for the action. Hey, Richie, how you doing? I'm fine, just fine. Snazzy outfit, huh? How's it grab you? Oh, yeah, that's cool. Isn't that cool, guys? Oh yeah, real cool. Yeah, great. I'm the head usher up in the balcony at the Bijou Theater. Oh, wow, what a great job. Oh, great, really great job. Best part comes at the late show. When I see a couple making out like crazy, I sneak up on them nice and quiet. Then, zap! I shine the flashlight on them. Boy, you want to see popcorn fly. That's neat. Really neat. Really neat. You came for the bike. It's all yours. Hey, I told you I owed you one, didn't I? And we Dukes always keep our word. Thanks, Frankie. Hey, thanks a lot. Hey, Frankie, gotta show you something. Before they leave, I think you'd like to read this. If the stolen bicycle is not returned in 24 hours, the Dukes will be scraping their noses off the ceiling. Yours truly, Potsy and his Raiders will be scraping their noses off the ceiling. Who's Potsy? The football team was coming. Now this sort of changes things. Listen, Frankie, Potsy didn't mean it. He's a real kidder. In fact, he'll even apologize if you want him to. I apologize. I'm sorry. I really didn't realize. You see, he's sorry? Gee, I'm sorry, too. I mean, this is a real challenge, you know? I can't let a threat like that go by without taking some action. It's against our code. If I were to let you get away with that, it would set a bad example for my men. Cute. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? You know what I mean? I know what you mean, but it'll be a fair fight. Squirt, you take the duck. You wouldn't hit a man with a beak. I'm a beak buster. You take him. You clobber him, and I'll take care of Richie. No, wait a second. I can't hit Richie. Richie's my friend. You hit Richie. Sir!
I don't see nothing. I mind my own business. When you finish, lock up.
Right, Pop. Okay, Dukes, get ready to punch. Wait a minute, this is silly. If the bike means that much to you, then just keep it. But it's my bike. Violence never solved anything. This all started because I did something nice for a little girl. Then you guys came and said thanks and took my friend's bike. Now the only way for us to get it back is if our army is bigger than your army. What if I brought the football team over here to scare you guys? What good would that do? You could get some more guys, and pretty soon we'd have 100 guys standing around trying to scare each other. Where would it all end? We should be able to settle our problems without threats and punches. Look at all the other countries around the world. They learned their lesson. Now we have the United Nations, so there won't be any more wars. Why can't people be like governments? Frankie, can't you see that there is honor in settling things with words instead of punches? That was a beautiful speech. I mean, it really was nice. Thank you. Now we punch him. Hold it! I have to warn you that I'm an expert in judo, and that these hands are registered with the FBI as lethal weapons. Ha! So's the chain in my pocket. Oh. Now, unless we got some more funny business, let's get down to some serious punching. Hi, Richie. All right, fellas, help yourself to some cue sticks here. Hey, Richie, let me buy you a drink, huh? I hope I'm not interrupting anything here. Oh, no, Fonzie, you ain't interrupting anything. We were just talking about the United Nations with our good friends here, right, Richie? You know, I'll tell you, that's great, because my boys haven't had a rumble in about a week, you know, and getting a little itchy, you know? Yeah, I know how it is. There's no trouble here. May I? See, that was me you caught in the balcony last Saturday. You owe me $1 a popcorn. Let's go, you guys. Hey, Frankie, wait a minute. Shut up, squirt. Oh, Fonzie, come by the Bijou anytime. I'll get you in free. And, here. Will you lock up when you leave? Sure, Pop. Fonzie, thank you. For what? The Fonz comes through in the clutch. All right. Are you guys really going to belt them with cue sticks? Hey, cool it instantaneously, huh? These guys are not here to rumble. I told them I knew a few guys that wanted to treat them to free pool drinks, huh? It'll cost you about $4. Potsy, pay him. It's your bike. Why? I didn't invite him. Hey, I got a great idea. Why don't you tell him that? I'll pay him.
So, yeah, I mean, there's some backlash to this, to the popular culture rebelling against traditional society. And so, yeah, I mean, some felt that this counterculture was irrational, irresponsible. Speaking of...
Casey has dreamed many dreams about himself. In 1964, he and his pals dreamed up one of the 60s first psychedelic communes, the Merry Pranksters. Then another dream of buying a used school bus and splashing it with paint. This is the bus named Further. The pranksters dreamed up a saying in the early 60s, "Are you on the bus?" It defined a certain consciousness for many in that generation.
When you realize the interconnectedness of all stuff, You realize that it's all the bus and you can never get off. But you have to realize that. Otherwise, you're not on the bus. I am on the bus.
Jerry Garcia and the Grateful Dead were definitely on the bus. President Lyndon Johnson was definitely off the bus.
We still seek no wider war.
Vietnam was a long ways away from the bus.